I always wanted to ask you this. So, what kind of conflict did you experience when you were a detective, if
That's
any?
far as what?
Just in general of being one, like, did you ever struggle with anything as far as like, you know, internally, how you felt about maybe the way things operated?
I mean, there's some things I don't approve of. Some things I see that I don't approve of, but the system is bigger than me. I'm just one person. I can't make a difference. Sometimes you feel like you're part of the system. If like you're going in the military, you're just one soldier. Can one soldier make a difference? Can one soldier make that change? I'm not in a position to make that change. Maybe if you become a general, or maybe if I become a chief in the department or general in the army, just one person.
It's kind of like one of those situations where it's like you can't worry about things you can't change. Like you can only focus on what you are in control of, basically, right?
Yeah. And if you're part of the system, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Only so much you can do. If they go out, for example, if they go out and tell you to, for example, I'm just saying, just off the top of my head, go write 20 summonses. You're not going to do it? And then those things, and you don't have to do it. They would want you to do it, but you don't have to do it. But what's going to happen if you don't do it? If you don't
Mm.
come in with 20 summonses a month or a day or whatever they want, you know? If they want you to make an arrest. They want you to make let's say, for example, I want 3 arrests a month or 2 arrests a month. You're out there hunting for arrests, right? You don't have to make an arrest.
While being a detective, what would you say is like one of the worst things that you ever witnessed? Because I feel like a lot of times people have this attitude towards police, like, oh, we hate police. They're always the ones that are cracking down, causing issues, or blah blah blah, like getting us in trouble. What you know what I mean? But I don't think that people realize how difficult it is to have that job and the terrible things that you witness on a regular basis that you have to be able to process.
As a detective, I've seen a lot of gruesome things. Went to a lot of crime scenes. It's just the only thing that bothers me are kids. Anything involving kids.
Right.
I mean, things that stick to my head, right off the top of my head. A box truck backed up. This elderly lady was pushing a baby carriage, like a 7-month-old baby, backed up into the baby, crushed the baby. All the innards came out, squirted all outside the pavement. It was a hot summer day, and it's basically his insides were cooking on the pavement. So I'm got my gloves, pick up the innards, and get rid of it. This is all over. Um, it was a 8-year-old kid or a 7-year-old girl that got hung. She was playing in the closet, hide and seek, fell off and hung herself on the bar. And just that was another scene. And this 12-year-old boy, I believe, he was stuck inside. How the Chinese people, they always put the gates, the stainless steel gates, in the window, and there was a fire. By the time the firefighters, came, the kid was dragged out the window, ripped, and I carried him to the ambulance, and he died. He died, and I had to tell his father that his son died, and like I will never forget it. He just passed out, like dropped like a sack of potatoes, just dropped, like he just passed out when he heard the news, and I was the one who made the notification to him because he only speak Cantonese, things like that, and also the famous Kletsky case. Kletsky, the kid who was chopped up into pieces and put in the refrigerator, was molested by, I guess, one of the people in the community, and that made headlines. So many cases involving kids that I just can't get out of my mind. But well, there's a lot of cases with adults too. I mean, some people die so unnecessarily. And one one case that stuck to my mind because this guy didn't have to die. He died because it was a nice summer day. He was riding his bicycle in Prospect Park, and he fell off his bicycle. And I had the foot post there. It cracked his skull. You see, like brain matter on the pavement. And if he wore his helmet, he wouldn't have died. So, and then since then, I was thinking, how many times did I ride a bike without a helmet when I was a kid, and how fast was I riding that bike? And I'm staying there at the scene, thinking to myself, like, all those times I have rode a bike without a helmet. And then if you fall and you don't have control over your fall and your head just even touch the pavement, tap your head on the pavement a little bit and see how much it hurts. Now imagine your full force, getting tossed off your bike, falling off your bike and smashing your head on the pavement. So these are the things I think about when I'm standing there for 8 hours on a foot post. A lot of gruesome scenes. A lot of suicides. We respond to DOA, death on arrival. That advice, but detectives have to respond to anybody who died in the house. So we go to a lot of those. Suicide when people hang themselves. It's not a pretty sight. Especially when you hang yourself. You'll be shitting your pants. Because it's not a pretty scene.
Do you feel like being an officer gives you more empathy for the pain that people endure in life? Or do you think that it forces you to have to compartmentalize that and separate yourself in order to be able to survive to continue to do the job?
I think every individual is different. If you, for me, doesn't bother me. I don't know them. I feel bad. I mean, it doesn't bother me because if it bothered me, my life would be a wreck.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know why, because maybe I didn't compartmentalize it. Maybe I don't bring it home with me. Maybe like after I see it, because I see it day in and day out. Think about it. Every week you see a dead body. How would have? I mean, you know how many detectives would commit suicide if it bothered them? I'm gonna tell you honestly, like it doesn't bother me. I could lie and say, "Oh, I feel so bad. I want to cry for them," but you know what? If it bothers me, then I would be a mess. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in a way, you know, like you see a lot of like you read a lot of things in the news or you watch a lot of videos, people dying, right? Is it gonna bother you if it's not you or your loved ones? I mean, there's over 1 million people who died in Russia, right? Russian Ukraine war, right? Every one of those soldiers have a mom, have a family, have a dad, right?
Right.
And then all those people die in Ukraine, same thing. Every one of them have a family. Is it bothering you that every day somebody's dying over there?
Yeah, but I guess like you're not seeing it up close though. It's a little different from when you're like having to be in the actual vicinity of seeing it like within feet of you and
You
doing
know,
work that deals with it though.
I work with people who served the Vietnam War and they were able to deal with it. But then there was some who weren't able to deal with it and went to alcohol and drugs. Remember, my when I started my car service business, we read my book. It was around 1990, and the people who worked for me were in their 40s, 50s. The drivers, they served in that war. They saw a lot of atrocities. They killed a lot of people. Yeah, and they they lived through it. Some people didn't. Some people, when they came back from that war, these American soldiers, they turned to drugs. They committed suicide. They had PTSD, and They were a mess. So it all
Do
depends.
you think that you have PTSD?
I don't know. I don't know. It depends, like, what I'm exposed to. Like, maybe, you know what? I don't know. It's hard to say because, sometimes I get like, my heart would, race, when I think of certain things.
Triggered? You get triggered a little bit by certain things?
Yeah. Yeah. You know? So I don't know. Do I? I don't know.
So your
I
whole time that you were on the job, like you didn't rely heavily on anything to cope or to deal with it, because like the way that like TV shows, movies, and everything make it seem like drinking culture is very popular amongst people that are on the task force, right? It's like at the end of the day, everybody drinks or something like that, like to help deal with the fucked up day they had.
That's like a form of escape. See, I'm not a heavy drinker. I'm
Mhm.
more like social. I don't need to drink alcohol. That's why like a lot of cops, they drink to escape. You know, and when I went to the academy, it was 9 months of training, and I remember them bringing us to the morgue. And we walk into the morgue and we see they want to expose the young rookie cops to dead bodies, gruesome scenes. Like I remember seeing a body on the slab, and this person was a fit, very fit, strong, muscular male black, and he had his two hands missing, and his 2 feet, and his head. So he was missing just his feet, the 2 feet, the two hands, and the head, and it was like surgically removed. That's how like clean the cut was. Probably like either with a chainsaw or whatever, but just to remove all traces of who he was. And then another guy that they were doing an autopsy on was a young Hispanic guy, remember, and middle age, maybe like in the 30s, and young guy, and they open up his body, like and doing autopsy. I'm thinking like this guy is so young, and I'm pretty sure like he didn't wake up that morning thinking he's gonna be dead. It's like they did away with that after 1996 because a lot of the recruits, they couldn't handle that kind of a gruesome scene, and a lot of them quit. A lot of them got traumatized. So not all cops can deal with that, you know.
Mhm.
So that's why they don't do that anymore. They don't take these rookie cops to the morgue anymore after that.